Hey everybody, Dr. Earl here once again. I'm by this shopping center near Interstate 45 here by the Woodlands area again. Sorry if you have a little trouble seeing me. It's not much light in this area other than the store light over there for the Carter store, which is for babies and kids. Someone I need to address, and this pertains to another industry that I'm very well infatuated with, that I've always respected, but haven't seen in a quite long time. Pro wrestling. I haven't watched pro wrestling in God knows how long. The last time I saw it was a couple weeks ago when I was watching WWE Raw. The last match being Braun Strowman and The Big Show, and it's where the ring collapsed. Now we don't know if that was a work or a shoot or an accident or anything, but seeing that was like, wow. In fact, it was probably the only thing interesting on Raw in God knows how long. But the main thing I wanted to discuss is a former employee of the WWE, or WWF at the time when he was there. He was also an employee of WCW. He was also with the NWA back in the 80s, managing the Midnight Express, the Dynamic Dudes, the Fantastics. I'm speaking of the one and only James E. Cornette. Cornette has expressed tons of bitterness towards the wrestling industry for many reasons. One, the fact that the business was exposed. People now know that it's fake and such. People now believing that wrestlers are not really the same heels that they are in real life. They just portray them. And to a traditionalist like Jim Cornette, that is a no-no. But what is really concerning, or kind of like drives people nuts, I should say, is his continuing criticism towards a former employee of the WWF, WCW, and TNA, Vince Russo. Cornette has called Russo a number of things. He said Russo has ruined wrestlers' lives, destroyed the wrestling industry in general with his storylines. At one point, he even blamed him for the death of Owen Hart in April or May of 1999, when that rappelling trick from the top of the arena faltered, causing him to die when he fell onto the mat. On his podcast, Cornette has called Russo even the foulest of names. Shit-stained is one of them. And I need to address Mr. Cornette of a few things. Starting with one. The reason why Russo was brought in to write the storylines for the WWF was because his storylines, him and Ed Ferreira's, were more compelling, a lot more dramatic, a lot more powerful, and it was a lot more reality-based. The beef between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vince McMahon no doubt had to be inspired by the newspaper strike back in Detroit, Michigan, which was in full throttle during that time. A couple years earlier, Detroit, Michigan was in the midst of a huge newspaper strike. Workers were going after the replacement workers, or scabs as they are referred to, beating them up, assaulting them, placing huge tax underneath the delivery trucks. Kind of similar to when Austin poured cement into a sports car owned by Vince McMahon at one time. And the problem with Cornette has with that is that it's not traditional. It's not what it used to be. It's supposed to be like this. It's supposed to be, everybody thinks it's supposed to be real. We're supposed to do this, and we don't want the business exposed. It would make us look like fools. Jim, one reason why the business was exposed is because there were some people out there taking it too far. Case example. A couple years back, during the Attitude Era, there was a young boy, I don't know how old he was at that time, in his 20s. He had a mental condition. He was used to watch wrestling like crazy. And for some reason, he started beating up his little brother, thinking that's how they learning it from the TV. He thought it was real. He wanted to do that, so he did it with his little brother. But the brother was under 10 years old, and he eventually died from that. Now, if I were to hear news about that, I'd be beyond concerned. And keep this in mind, the business was exposed way earlier than that, 1985 to be exact. John Stossel, who then was the reporter for the ABC news show 2020, did a report about the wrestling scene. He talked to many wrestlers like Hulk Hogan, of course. He talked to Vince McMahon. And he also spoke to one wrestler named Dr. D. David Schultz. Stossel made the mistake of saying, wrestling's fake. I know it's fake. I've seen it. I've learned about it. In response to that, Schultz whacked Stossel across the earlobes. He's now deaf in 1 year because of that. Schultz got fired, of course, from doing that. Stossel got tons of money from the WWF, and now he has a new, nice-looking house as a result of that. But the damage cannot be repaired to his hearing, at least one of his ears that he took the blow to. And here's something else. The WWF was in fierce competition with WCW, Ted Turner's product. The company that was the NWA was doing well in their ratings, primarily because of a gimmick that really shocked the living hell out of us. Hulk Hogan doing the NWO turn. The greatest wrestling hero of all time, joining forces with Emperor Palpatine, was a huge shock. Hogan telling the fans to stick it, becoming all evil, was like a big shock to everybody. And to add to that, the storyline was that the NWO was going to destroy WCW for no real reason. But then again, no real reasons are needed when a wrestler turns on another wrestler. The WWF needed help, so they had to take the biggest chance they had in hiring a magazine writer to write the stories. It needed help. Besides, the WWF at that time was still doing their cartoonish crap. The worst one? The Goon. Here was Wild Bill Irwin, who was one of the wildest wrestling performers ever. Cowboy hat, long-haired, beard, trench coat, going ape shit, going in the ring and just mauling the hell out of whatever opponent's in the ring. They got him to cut his hair, shave his beard off, put on a hockey jersey, carry a hockey stick to the ring, and they call himself the Goon? Any gimmick that's going to make you represent a different sport other than the sport that you are involved in is not going to work. And I think the reason why Cornette is still bitter about Russo becoming the writer is because he wanted things his way. He wanted to bring back the tradition. He wanted to bring back the old times. But this is the 1990s we're talking about. Tradition was out the door. So for how many years, Cornette gets on Russo's case every chance he gets, calls him an abominable prick, shit stain, murderer over what happened with Owen Hart. And by the way, I need to say something about this. Cornette couldn't wait to blame Russo for Owen Hart's death, but here's a couple things you need to realize. Anytime you're repelled from the top of the arena onto the ring, there may be a chance that an accident could happen. There was a good chance that probably one of the parts of the harness wasn't working properly. There was a good chance that one of the cables may have broke. And by the way, the repelling thing was done before. A couple weeks back, prior to that pay-per-view event in '99, Steve Blackman, the Lethal Weapon, was involved with an on-screen feud with Owen himself. After a match between Blackman and some opponent whose name escapes me, which Blackman wins, a man dressed as the Blue Blazer is coming down slowly, but he's like, no, wait, it's not me, it's not me. No, it's not me. No. Blackman, thinking that it is Owen himself, goes after him. About less than 5 seconds later, who comes up from behind? Owen Hart. So that trick was done before, and it was done safely. And also, let's not forget, Owen was rehearsing it that day of the pay-per-view. Now, as far as what with WCW, let's face it, WCW it had good wrestlers, but there was too many bad decisions, too many bad ideas, too many bad bookings, and most of all, bad management. Now, I'm going to say a couple things that maybe Vince Russo should learn as well. For one, he says should be a question about a couple things in his storyline. Number one, not everything has to involve tits and ass. Not everything has to involve family members going after each other's throats. I wasn't that big fan of David Flair going after his father, Ric Flair, during the New Blood segments. What Cornette needs to realize is that things do change. Sad but true. Very sad but true. Just hold on to the memories, but also learn from the mistakes made as well. Most of all, let it go. When you constantly hold on to a grudge, it gives that person you're holding that grudge to more power and more publicity. And it's going to make you mentally sick as well. Yes, I would like Vince Russo to come back to writing wrestling shows. It would be nice. Members of Super Ugly would agree. I guess a lot of people would agree. Comments on YouTube from various subscribers agree as well. Russo needs to come back to the WWE as well. Just don't have family members going after each other's throats. Not much tits and ass and twats and all that stuff. And no cussing, okay? Remember, we do have kids watching. And the WWE is a publicly traded company. Basically, keep it on the border, okay? I'm Dr. Earl. Subscribe to my channel. Peace out.